Hey guys, what is going on? Comic Relief here, After Hours. We are back, another one. This time it's not really a podcast as much as a review of Black Panther. Now, you're going to find in the title here that it says Part 2. That is because if you go over to the James Eversole Jr. movie podcast in the description below, you will find Part 1. We're doing a bit of a crossover type review, kind of like in the comic books when you see the same event crossing over multiple titles. Well, we thought we'd be a little interesting and the first to do it because it's obviously never been done in the history of YouTube. We're having a crossover Black Panther review. So if you want to check out Part 1, go over to the James Eversole Jr. movie podcast for that. But for Part 2, you can stay right here and take a listen. I've got James and Josh with me. Say hello.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on again, man. I feel like I just seen you.
Yeah, it's really fresh in my mind.
Hi. Hey guys. I missed you.
You know, guys, I'm looking at Josh's shoes, and I'm just wondering, what are those? What are those? He calls them sneakers. Okay. But anyway, guys, if you go to the first one, we talked a lot about the character breakdowns, things that we did like, things we didn't like, who were the standouts, kind of what was our overall rating of the movie out of 10, things like that. For those of you who don't want to listen, we'll give you just kidding. Go over there and check it out. But what we're going to do here is I kind of wanted to break down on this segment. I wanted to break down the themes, the thematic messages, the story, what was going on a little bit more, and dive underneath the movie a little bit and dissect it a bit. So first thing I did want to talk about was which I know I'm not the only one to think this, but I hadn't seen or heard anybody say it yet, which is a little troubling to me. People who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. So, but I think it was very intentional on Coogler's and Marvel's part to make T'Challa be the Martin Luther King Jr. of this movie, while Eric Killmonger was more the Malcolm X, and as so far as their tactics, yep. Right? They both essentially want the same thing, right? They both want the throne, even though T'Challa doesn't seem that adamant about getting it. Yep. He just kind of knew he would ascend to it, whereas Killmonger really wants it. But they both want the same thing, and we see that in the end play out, where T'Challa is going to expand Wakanda, not be so much of an isolationist nation anymore, and share with the world, kind of bring their presence to the world stage, something that Killmonger wanted to do, but he wanted to do it in a much more violent fashion. He basically wanted to arm the rest of the world, which, if you think about the implications of him sending out weapons to the rest of the world, he was instigating or igniting another world war, right? Yeah. You're giving people who have no business with Wakandan tech weapons, you're arming them. What are they going to do? They're going to all try and conquer the world, whereas Wakanda would basically be the strongest country in the world at this point because they're the only ones with the history and know-how and the advancements to do it. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about their tactics and the way it kind of plays and served their roles. So with T'Challa, what did he want? What do you think he wanted in the movie? Anybody?
He wanted what was best for his people.
But how did he go about doing that and achieving that?
By sticking with traditions.
Well, yeah, and
it was obvious that he was slowly wanting to change, but I mean, for the most part, he was wanting what was best for the people, and he just.
But we didn't really hear an outcry from the people either, right? We didn't hear, and that was one of the things I think was a little bit of a miss on the movie's part, is we don't really get to know any of the citizens of Wakanda. We don't really know what their stance is on their kings and being a part of a monarchy. Mm-hmm. We don't really know, do they feel empowered? Do they feel neglected and forgotten? I mean, we get a little bit of it from M'Baku and his tribe, right, which is the reason he challenges T'Challa in combat.
Well, it's like criticism coming from every direction. You see that, and then what his father said to him too. He's like, "You have a good heart." Like T'Challa, the reason why he has a good heart, he listens to all the things, and then he's juggling this all at once. So maybe that's why it speaks to his character,
right?
Like Nakia, obviously he loves her and everything else, but she's like, "Hey, I want to do this and everything else." And he's like, "Well, I don't want to disappoint her," but then you have the other side of the coin coming from the other side, and he's just like, "Oh, I don't want to disappoint this side." So you see him juggling that, and that should show to T'Challa's character that he actually has a heart because he actually listens to this. Unlike Killmonger's like, "I don't give a fuck what anybody else says,"
Right.
I think that he's listening, but I think in the beginning of the movie, he doesn't see it.
Yep.
I think that, which kind of speaks to society, is it's from the outside, or from looking in, everything looks fine. Everything's going hunky dory. So why fix what's not broken? But the thing is, though, is their stuff's still broken.
Right, and we find that there are some blemishes on the history of
Not
Wakanda that are
everything
kept
is-
secret.
Yeah,
Right.
not everything is as polished. Even though it looks polished, it is not as clean as what
There's
you
some
think it
skeletons
is.
in the closet.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And I think that's what it is. It's mostly just like he was listening, yes, he was juggling, yes, but he wasn't woke.
It wasn't woke. Okay. I feel like this is not the first time you've had to drop that on the podcast. Okay, so yeah, I think it's just I think it's important to going forward in this podcast and talking to each other. We need to understand that the differences here between them kind of wanting the same thing was their way of going about things.
Yeah,
You
right?
had two different visions, but
One was a little bit more aggressive.
One-
Martin
yeah.
Luther King kind of preached more of a civil disobedience, and Malcolm X was definitely more in favor of a violent approach.
well, that's like
Right.
what we talked about in part one was like, you rooted for Killmonger, but not the conclusion, his vision of what he wanted when he got on the throne and everything else.
Yeah.
But you wanted T'Challa's vision.
I didn't root for Killmonger, but I understood his motives.
Exactly.
You know,
It's like you understand it. You're not really like. Well, it's like in the first part, which we keep referencing now.
That's fine. That's
good.
good.
It's good.
Let
yeah,
people
go back and
get curious
But
and
like
go
what
listen.
you're saying, like what you guys were talking about earlier, like you said you were kind of rooting for him, and Jake's like, well, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong because really it just depends on your stance. I mean, there's really. I mean. Yeah, he's a bad guy, but like you can understand why he would have that thought process that what he has in the movie.
Yeah. Well, it's like you, Josh, what you said. It's like, well, no, it was you, Jake, that eventually it was Killmonger's vision in the end of going to the outside world and blah, 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 but not in an aggressive way like
Yeah,
Killmonger
he was going
wanted
aggressively.
it. Yeah.
right?
So,
And that's something I was talking to about with a customer lately is that with these, because if you really think about it, our generation here, we're between 26 and 28, all of us, right? So we're kind of like the last generation to remember the days of things of growing up without internet being a part of our childhood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It comes into the forefront right around the time we're in middle school. We have to start learning how to type. We got to start learning how to research on the internet, things like that. But we remember the time before where we had the VHSs, and I remember having to record Dragon Ball Z on a VHS.
I thought DVD was the fucking awesome.
I thought it was the
feature.
weirdest
I
thing, man. I was like,
this
VHS
is crazy.
yeah. But anyway, so what happened was in our culture here, in our society that we live in now, our world is we've globalized, right? We can get information on anything anytime we want. I can find out the ongoings of South Korea, Russia, fucking South Africa, France, whatever, all at the click of a fucking button.
Yeah.
I can figure this stuff out now. It's an instant gratification type thing. But where I'm going with this is that we didn't moderate these advancements slowly and integrate them into us, and we haven't learned to be responsible with this technology. So what happened was they've opened the flood. What happened was technology, the floodgates just opened. It spilled everywhere, and we were left to deal with the flood. And we have to, sink or swim time. If you don't get on board with technology, you're left behind in the past. If you get it, you're okay.
You're jerking off 24/7 to online porn.
Yeah, that's about you. That's about as far as your internet knowledge ends up going. Sure, but that is kind of what would have happened had Killmonger had his
Exactly,
way,
yeah.
right? And if you really think about it, and something actually I'm just now thinking about. While T'Challa and Killmonger were fighting for Wakanda, Everett Ross actually he saved the world, because if it weren't for him, those weapons got out to the rest of the world. He stopped them all. So in a weird way, he actually saved the world while T'Challa saves Wakanda. Interesting to think about. But anyway, so it's not that this technology shouldn't be shared with the rest of the world, but it definitely needs to happen slowly until human and mankind can evolve with it. Too many people are stuck in the past, which
Well, that's why I think T'Challa questioned at all the directions it's coming from. It's like, what speed do I do this if I'm going to do it at all? That's just
Right.
another thing. His character. It's like, as king, taking that responsibility. It's like, if I do it too fast, like you said, you sink or swim with all this technology and everything else. You feed them too fast, and then they drown.
Right.
And then, okay, I should go slow with it and everything else. He doesn't know the speed that to do
Right,
this.
and it also speaks to the fact that he grew up in that society. He didn't grow up in Wakanda. He grew up in the society we're talking about now that just was way too fast. So he's definitely an extremist, right? And that's not something that we don't see here now in our society now, which is what I'm saying. This movie has a lot of political and social relevance, and I think that's where this movie really succeeds, if you ask me. Above all, it succeeds in its message.
Yep.
We can tear apart the technical aspects of this movie and say the CGI didn't live up. There were certain things that were not great or not good, but I think that's because this movie's ambition was just so big. So when your ambition's that big, the flaws are as big. You know what I mean? So we can tear apart those flaws, but I think it succeeds in its overall message.
I think that right now, I've never looked at you more handsomely than when I ever did.
Sorry, I know you didn't realize.
No, because like that's like okay, like because like what you're trying to say is almost exactly what my whole feeling is with this movie. Is like if you listen to the last podcast, I kind of sound like I'm like dogging the movie a little bit, but I'm not really. I'm like kind of dogging it just because it wasn't. I was hoping this would be my number one Marvel movie, and it's not. Right. But that does not mean it's not a good movie. It's a good movie. But the main thing about this movie is its message. That's where the movie is. It deserves, all the praise it's getting.
Yeah.
Now, as a movie itself, if I'm judging it as a movie critic myself, I would probably not put it up there with Winter Soldier.
No, it's not.
If I'm judging it as a movie, but as a maybe I don't want to say movement because I hate using that word, but technically as it's a big huge sensation and it deserves that praise because it nails it on the head.
It's instrumental in a movement that's happening right now,
yes.
right? And so that's one thing I do. Let's speak on this while we're on the topic. But okay, so. Let's be upfront about this. We're all three white men, right?
Very white.
We're very white.
Hey, I took Ancestry.com, and I am 1% African American.
So you're 99% shut the fuck up right now. So
yeah.
And then 1% Middle Eastern. Didn't see that coming.
I can see it,
but I can kind of see it. I'm not,
but no, I do want. Let's stay on topic, or I'll lose my train of thought. But no, we're all white men, right? So with that comes stigma. With that comes. Maybe not stigma, but it comes with a preconceived idea of who we are, how we were raised, and what our social backgrounds are, right?
Yes.
So I can't say that this movie doesn't mean anything, that it's not as good to people who feel represented by this movie. Okay, if you're a young black man, young black girl, a black man, black woman our age or older, and you watch this movie and you feel represented, and you look past the technical flaws of this film, and you love this is your favorite Marvel movie, this is your favorite superhero movie, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Yeah. Because the way this movie strikes a chord with you didn't strike a chord with me. Because
well, you could say the same thing for Wonder Woman. It's like the the chord too. It's just like it. I'm not a girl, obviously, and that message coming across. It's like
here's the thing. This is going to be very unpopular, and I don't give a fuck. This is my podcast. I'll say whatever the fuck I want. But women, to me, are not as oppressed a minority as the African American community, right? If we want to go across the board and go where do the inequalities lie, the human rights infringement on the African American community, I think, is much harsher than just females. You know what I mean? And if you fall into both those categories, you're an African American female, then you're having it a lot tougher, right? But
before we continue this, I know that you could say you like people should say, oh well, like Wonder Woman's the same thing for women, right? But the thing is though, is it's not, because it doesn't get the feel across that like what it should, like of the representation, the empowerment,
right,
and everything. But you know what Black Panther does? It does that for females the way Wonder Woman should have.
Absolutely. Because look at the Dora Milaje.
Those like one of them, she had
any of those chicks could have taken on Wonder Woman, if you ask me.
Yeah, exactly. And like one of them had an affair or has a lover who is a man, but when it comes down to it, her job was more important than that.
Yeah.
And see,
and she was well respected too.
Yes.
I forgot to say that about her too, because like that scene where Nakia was like, we need to go there. He's like, I can't. It's like I swore that throne no matter who sits on it.
Okay, yeah.
So that's one. That's where I will with your little argument on this whole Wonder Woman thing. I just think that Wonder Woman did not portray the representation that women wanted, but in Black Panther they hit it the way that Wonder Woman should.
That's what I'm saying. It's like when I said that about Wonder Woman, it's like they didn't execute that as well. So why is it getting the praise it did?
See, here's the thing. What was the manifesto of Wonder Woman? Was it female empowerment? No, because I didn't get that from this movie.
No, you didn't.
You know, I was it love conquers all? That's not true either, because she just beats the shit out of the dude at the end. You know what I mean?
And we still have World War II after that.
Right. So you know, the movie's message there was muddled, if you ask me.
Yes.
You can pick and choose certain parts and go, what about this? What about this? But as a whole, as a cohesive message in film, was it represented as effectively as this? No. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, no, it wasn't.
Not even close.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, this movie right here, again, like we said, if you barring any technical aspects that maybe were subpar or didn't live up to whatever the hype is, the theme and message of this film permeates all of those things. So you can take away from it that while it wasn't a perfect movie, it is a very relevant and strong movie, and and its message is strong, and it went full force with it. You know what I mean? But what we were saying is this movie may not have affected me, you, James, the way it could a young black man who watches this movie who never felt represented on screen, right?
Yeah, you can. I can't speak for them,
right,
at all. But I can. Just thinking about it, I'm just going like, I never really had to worry about representation in other stuff. I've always had Captain America. I've always had Green Arrow, Batman.
Well, you can marvel.
And then you
can marvel at their experience. It's just like, this is great.
Yeah,
like
I'm so happy for that.
Yeah, I'm like, this is amazing. This is perfect.
Yep.
This is like what the world needed. I know that sounds like a really,
I
feel like it's definitely what.
Look, this movie is definitely striking while the iron's hot. This movie was the movie we needed at the right time.
Exactly.
Right movie, right time. I mean, it is what it is. That, you know, and I can say all day, oh, you know, representation and all this stuff, and I don't feel represented by this movie, so it's not as good. But that I cannot disprove anybody who feels that way, right? Because I've said this multiple times, but growing up, I watched Static Shock, and I loved this cartoon. And it wasn't about racial barriers. It wasn't about the I wanted to be him, and I never even thought to myself, well, I'm a white kid, he's a black kid, I can't do that. But on the flip side of that, any black kid, I didn't grow up in a place where I felt racial tension. You know what I mean? If you're growing up in maybe Oakland or, Compton or any of these places that are primarily black, but they feel oppressed by.
I was about to yell that. I was like, Compton.
Yeah,
Stockton. Stockton, motherfucker.
But any place that they feel like they're being if they're downtrodden by their government, maybe they feel neglected. Their neighborhoods aren't safe, and nobody wants to do anything about it. Like, those racial tensions, I can't speak to. So if you're a young black man growing up in these types of neighborhoods, and you are very aware from a very young age that they exist, this movie would mean so much more to you
exactly,
than any Marvel movie, superhero movies ever meant to me. Yeah. So I can't dismiss them feeling that way.
Oh yeah, of course. I can easily see how someone could say this is their their favorite movie of all time.
Right.
Just because of that. And and to verify what you're saying earlier, when I was younger, I didn't realize that I didn't really pay attention to how people of different race and stuff like that was misrepresented, and that's not the word I'm looking for.
Misrepresented.
Yeah, misrepresented and stuff like that. Because to me, that stuff didn't. Because I'm a white guy, I didn't. Right. That stuff didn't really come to me. But another thing too is I watched Static Shock as well, and I was like, man, I didn't think anything about I could feel like I'm representing.
Right.
I didn't think about like that. But then,
I didn't care that the sidekick was a dorky white kid either. I was like, I don't want to fuck that guy. I want to be Static Shock.
I never really paid attention to the race. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But then it's so it's really hard for us to be able to relate with people in
this.
We
can't speak to their experience from a first-hand account.
But we can but I can understand. I tried the way I try to tell myself is I'm trying to imagine if I was in a world filled with things where people don't look like me, or everything that does look like me seems to be in a negative light.
Right.
I can
You're
see
stereotyped as the thug or the drug dealer. Whatever.
If there was something out there that showed nothing but people that were like me, and they were advanced, they were smart, they were fierce,
They were regal. They were proud to be black. They were
some of the most courageous, bravest, and like
technologically advanced, intelligent
people.
Yeah.
Then I was like, then yes, this is that representation that's been needed for a very long time.
And honestly, I just kind of discovered this now, and that's why I like talking about these things. We will be making, hopefully, we're making discoveries as we talk about this during the podcast in real time. But it's like, what does it say that the most advanced culture in the entire world is a black culture? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're so advanced that their civilization is so advanced. Yeah, they have this monarchy, and they have maybe what we would view as primitive rituals and stuff, but they're so advanced that they don't feel the need to have outside influence, because look how well they've done just left to their own devices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't have anybody oppressing them, and look at how they've been able to flourish. They are technically the most advanced civilization on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You know, and this is kind of where Killmonger's coming from when he talks about his ancestors being shuttled off on boats and brought over here against their will. Like, you truncated their entire life, their entire civilization, their nationality, their identity. You've kneecapped it off, and you've sold us as if we're property. You didn't allow us to flourish. And in the movie, you know, this is again, it's something you can debate all day with science, but they say life originated in Africa, right? Which I've heard scientists.
Yep.
That's a theory that life has originated in Africa.
True. Mm-hmm.
You've basically taken them away from what could have been the most advanced civilization ever, because, and you turn them into slaves.
Yep.
You know, you've turned them into slaves. You've projected your own superiority on them. You've oppressed these people. But had they been just left well enough alone, they could have been fine. Maybe they'd be ruling the world now. You know what I mean? And that's where kind of Killmonger is coming from. And he wants, in a very, again, violent way, he wants to restore that order. And I think that's a really strong backstory. Whether or not I agree that it was executed well in the film is a different story. But it is strong. And if you can relate to that, if you feel like you're a part of that culture, if you can really tie yourself and go, wow, my whole life could be different had these white people not taken me over, my ancestors over here, and just fucked up their entire world.
Yep.
You know, I could be a part of that civilization over there, and I could be thriving. I could be a fucking king for all I know.
Yep.
There's plenty of people now who very well could be of royal lineage had their ancestors not been taken over here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really strong message.
Yeah.
The next thing I wanted to get to, again, it's another thing that I think is socially and politically relevant, is this idea of sins of the father, right? The sins of the past generations. In T'Challa, he talks about this the second time he goes into the ancestral plane, and he talks with his father, and he actually gets angry with him. And this is my favorite ancestral plane moment. It wasn't the first one. The first one for me, again, going back to the CGI, it didn't look real. I didn't really buy into the scenery. It looked green screeny to me, whatever. But this time it was at like a sunset. Like the sun is setting on the old age. You know, it's time for a new age. It's the sun setting. I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But he's talking to his dad, and he's talking to his father about, you created this monster. Your attempts to keep Wakanda isolated, your attempts to stick with the old traditions and things like that, you've created this, and this is basically karma coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, this is
back to bite you.
Exactly. We're getting bitten in the ass by machinations of you. You know what I mean? This is a monster of your own making, and now I'm left to pick up the pieces. Now, if you really think about, if you extrapolate that, what does that really mean? How is it applicable now? Well, if you really think about it, this new generation, us coming up, we're dealing with so many just ugly things in our history, things that we're now really just getting our asses kicked about because we can't let go of it. We see racial and social divides over things that none of us ever had a firsthand account in dealing with or being a part of. It's just part of the history. And then another thing is that Killmonger's his bloodline being a secret also kind of goes to, well, in history lessons and history books, what we learn is we learn the pretty truth. You know, there's all these ugly things that you don't learn in school, right? And that's kind of what Killmonger represents.
The victor writes the stories.
Yeah, exactly. Whoever controls the past controls the future. You know, thank you, Rage Against the Machine. But but I like the idea of that being something that they felt to bring to prominence in this movie, is because it is now. It's like, you know, you've got the African American community who feels oppressed because of their ancestors being slaves 250 some years ago. We're the white man. We're still seen as the enemy because of what our ancestors did 250 plus years ago. You know, it's like, if you keep holding on to that shit, it serves you no good, and it's going to keep dividing us the way it's divided Killmonger, and you know what I mean? And so what T'Challa does is he decides that he's going to stop the ways of the past, and that's why he goes and is like, look, Wakanda's going to join the rest of the world. Yeah. You know, we got to let go of the old traditions. We got to let go of the old way of thinking if we want to be at peace and harmony with the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's exactly the speech he gave to M'Baku when he was sitting there talking to him. He was like, you know, he went to go bring up the ancestors and everything. He was like, I can't speak for, I don't speak for.
Yeah, he said no king has been here in centuries.
Yep. So it just like exactly what you said. Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
Hey, Josh, anything to say?
No.
I know you're on it.
You're on it. You're killing it. I'm just like,
you're killing it.
No, because like, I mean, you're speaking a lot through. You're hitting a lot of my points, because, like I said earlier, the first part of this podcast, I sound like I'm dogging the movie. James came up and talked to me after the movie, and he asked me what I thought, and then, I mean, you pretty.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that, because like after I did that, a whole fucking swarm of crowds started coming.
It happens. Like, I was trying to sneak out, and I knew it was going to happen. It's an opening night of a Marvel movie. I know that, and I'm not trying to say I'm popular, but people start, crowding around me when they know my opinion on the fucking movie, and it's like, just listen to the fucking podcast.
I just came up to talk shit about Jacob's list.
But like, the one thing about, and I was telling James, like, I need to watch it twice to know what the actual, but as a theatrical movie, if I'm judging it as a movie, yes, it has its flaws, but this movie is a massive deal, and it's great on its message. It is fantastic with its message, and you are just, I'm really surprised. Yeah, I'm very surprised, because you're hitting a lot of these like things. I'm just like, I'm going to say this, and Jake's going to be like, dude, fuck off.
Yeah, it's like
fucking. Dude, you need to judge this by its camera angles and its collar contents and shit. And I'm just be like, motherfucker, this movie is a movement.
Yeah, it is.
Well, like, you already tackled the thing about it before I even said it. Was like, even when they brought Killmonger in handcuffs to the throne room, he was sitting there. He was like, it's talking about the Wakanda's people and Wakanda's people only. He was like, hey, you got 2 billion people, my people, out there suffering and everything else. So, yeah, you tackled it, too.
See,
it was just
that's the other thing, too, I took from this movie that I really enjoyed, was it wasn't so much, the relationship between African Americans and white people. No, this was about, Africans and African Americans. It was also dealing a lot with that relation too.
Absolutely, it was.
It wasn't like, a lot of I'm pretty sure there's some bigoted ass motherfuckers out there that's going like, I ain't watching that movie. They're probably just trying to push their beliefs on me, and
it's
like
SJW agenda.
They're trying their SJW agenda, and it's like, this movie does not say kill Whitey at all. No, I'm not saying literally. I'm saying there's no message on this going like white people are the fucking enemy. None at all.
And I was gonna say that actually in part one, had they killed off Everett Ross, because if you kill off the only 2 white people in this movie, it would have been like
I know, right?
All the white people who already went into this movie wanting to hate it would have been like, this is a fucking white snuff film. Okay? But I think that...
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Kill Whitey! James would have Whitey
kill Everett Ross. Kill Whitey.
I would have liked the movie more if we just killed all white people.
I didn't even... Oh, God.
So, but yeah, I think... But I when he was talking about that he was talking to T'Challa about that. And actually, I've been trying to wrap my head around the idea, why does T'Challa take the challenge? But we'll get to that in a second. But... when he said, there are 2 billion people, your people out there that could use your help, and you're sitting here ignoring them. It does
here comfortably.
Yeah, it does. It does. It speaks to the inter relationship between Black people and their relationship to the society overall. And so, what struck me first when hearing that and watching the movie, a Dave Chappelle line came to my head. He's like, look, if you want to make it in this world and you want to be successful and all this, first off, you got to stop blaming white people for all your problems, okay? And I think that is honestly one of Coogler's things. Now, of course, Dave Chappelle follows that up with and you got to learn to rap or play basketball or something. But of course, he's a comedian. It's his job to make jokes. But I think he's actually, he's trying to say something there too, with some that has truth to it. Is, guys, look, if we want to move past this, we have to stop blaming white people for our problems, okay? And of course, I don't think they believe that white people are the source of all their problems, right? But if you want to move forward, you got to stop holding on to the baggage of the past. So,
yep. It reminds me of Jadina. He's a rapper from, well, not rapper, but he's a music artist from actual
He's a classic man.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And even in one of his songs, he's like, you sat on the corners of the sidewalk and blamed everything around you as I went on and actually got the voice to the higher up or something like that. So, because he went to Harvard and everything else, it's like, he made the voice more stronger and not sitting there complaining. Like you said, you're carrying the baggage of everybody around you and pointing the finger when you need to point at this, that I actually need to do something.
I think there's a little bit of Ryan Coogler speaking there too, because if you think about it, he puts the opening scene of the movie in Oakland.
Yep.
Now, I don't think that that was as much about the Black Panther movement originating in Oakland.
It was cool.
It's a nice little trivial factoid,
exactly, yeah.
But what I think is it was more Ryan Coogler going, look, this is where I'm from. I'm nobody special, and I fucking made it. Yeah. I'm here making this movie that you're watching right now, and I'm grassroots too, man. I grew up in the fucking hood. I grew up in Oakland, but I did something, and it's because I stopped letting myself be oppressed, and I stopped putting up these barriers for myself. And when I can do whatever the fuck I want to do, and I think that's a message that he's sending out, and I'm really hoping a lot of people take that away from it. And not just black people. I want everybody to take that away, because I know so many fucking lazy ass white people who think that it's not their own fault that they're in the predicaments that they're in or the lifestyle they live. It's somebody else's fault.
Yeah. Somebody
was keeping me down. And, I think that's not just a something that's you can apply, a problem that you can apply to just black people. But in the movie, of course, they want to speak to that audience, and I think that this was a great way for Coogler to do that. Just cut the ties.
Yeah.
Remember where you're from, but progress.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's exactly what Wakanda does. So that kind of moves me into the end battle, right? The end battle, which we talked about in part one. I've got my issues with it. And part of my issues with that could have been thematically and visually represented to be a stronger point if you didn't have Panther and Killmonger fighting in the mine.
Yeah.
Right? I think because the reason I think they did that is because Killmonger is fighting for Wakanda, but he's fighting for the resources of Wakanda. What's the resources of Wakanda? The vibranium mine, right? But what's Black Panther fighting for? He's fighting for just Wakanda, not their resources, but his people, for himself, for the rest of the world ultimately. So had you put those two fighting on that the field that everyone else is fighting in, I think thematically that speaks a lot better, because if you're fighting, Killmonger and Black Panther are fighting among their people, right? Everyone's surrounding them. You've created a microcosm of what you're fighting for, not the landmine, but the people that are surrounding you, fighting you. Plus, it could have been really cool. You could have had a lot of great action in there, because you could have had guys from Wakabi, I think, his people trying to take shots at Panther, so he's fending off 3 or 4 people, and Killmonger. Killmonger's fighting off the Dora Milaje and Black Panther. But what are you fighting for? That's where you need to set that end battle in, and the end battle wouldn't have been so unfocused to shift between the landmine, the field, and Everett Ross and what he's doing. But if you had just the overall fight happening between the Dora Milaje, M'Baku's tribe, and Wakabi's tribe, that would have spoke a lot more to this is what we're fighting for.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah.
And so that's something that I just think that you could have hammered home the point a little bit better. You could have served the story a little bit better. You could have just strengthened the message of the movie, because whether or not an audience realizes that's what they're seeing and that's how they're consuming the movie, subconsciously they're getting that message. And that's how film actually works. Lighting, cinematography, everything, it all plays to a human subconscious on how they need to interpret the information that they're seeing. So if you put that in battle, and Okoye's there, Nakia's there, Shuri's there, Okoye's there, and Mbaku's there, Wakabi's there, seeing that fight happen, you get something a little bit more akin to maybe the end of Lion King.
Yep.
And that's just the first thing that jumps to my head. But there are parallels to Lion King. But it's like when Scar and Simba are fighting amongst the hyenas and the pride, and it's like you get to see how this fight affects everybody. When you isolate them in the mind, which is not a very particularly interesting thing to look at for me because it's so fake looking. You relieve the tension of that fight and of that scene, and ultimately you lower the stakes.
Yep.
But if you put that over there, you strengthen your message, and you strengthen your visual storytelling.
Yep, that's like even a cool throwback to the beginning opening credits when they were explaining the history of Wakanda. Mm-hmm. You had all five of the tribes saying they were fighting each other. So, and you had in the middle, you had a rise of the Black Panther. So that'd been a cool throwback of the modern time from the ancestry where it all started.
Right.
So that'd been cool. Yeah, I really like that. That'd been cool.
Thank you. Josh, anything to say?
No, man, you're hitting on the head.
All right. Well, what about you guys? Was there any other message, any other moments you think that you go, okay, you know what? Now that we've talked a little bit about the messages, about the themes, of the movie, are there any other instances in the movie that you go, this really strengthens this idea?
The power of women, I think. Just like
talk about
with what's her name? Chick from Walking Dead plays Michonne.
Oh,
who she play?
Okoye.
Okoye. Like I said, go back to that throne scene with her. She was like, I'm to the throne. I'm loyal. So the loyalty there, I thought that was really empowering too, because you're like,
the point where she is about to, she is willing to kill
her husband.
Yeah, exactly. The man she loves, because she is loyal to her job.
Yeah.
The man doesn't define who she is.
So if you were to apply that to today, to the world that we live in now, what role is she playing there, in your opinion? If you ask me, it's look, sometimes you got to make the hard choices and the sacrifices in order to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've got to make the hard choices and do the thing that maybe your community is telling you to do. This is the way your life is because of where you live. And she's maybe a little bit like Ryan Coogler. Like, no, I'm not defined by living in the hood in Oakland. I'm going to get out. I'm going to do something. Yep. I'm going to be true to myself, and I'm going to be true to the movement.
You'll be questioned by everybody around you, but you have to be true to who you are. So
right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Nakia, I think she was just a phenomenal character. I think Lupita Nyong'o is a great actress, and I don't know, man. I feel like I need to talk about her. I don't exactly know what to say, but I think she was just such a great pivotal character in this movie.
Who?
Nakia.
Oh, Nakia?
Yeah. I don't think you have the Black Panther movie that we have without her.
Yeah.
No.
You know what I mean? And I think she's... I know everyone loves Shuri because she's fun, she's cute, she's the little sister, but I think without Nakia, you don't have the Black Panther. And as somebody pointed out, I forget who I was listening to, it was on YouTube, they were talking about, if you pay attention, anytime Nakia's in the room, T'Challa's eyes are on her at all times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like T'Challa looks at her and goes, this is what I'm fighting for. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm fighting for love. I'm fighting for acceptance and all this other stuff.
Even
too,
he said she's stubborn. That's like what he said. He's like, you make her great queen because you're so stubborn.
Yeah,
she said that.
That was another little fun thing too.
I thought they were cute.
Oh yeah, they're cute. But see, that's the other fun thing too about it, right? Like, she, it's obvious that she has the same kind of feelings as he does, you know? But, he gets thrown off his fucking game when she's in the room.
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning scene when you see him fighting.
She's the king, but she really holds all the power in that dynamic.
Yeah. And, once again, another thing, see, this is where Wonder Woman failed, you know? I know this, we're taking away from the African Americans, but, this also really speaks to women, too.
It does.
The whole movie, the messages that it gives out, it's just so great. But yeah, I mean,
you know, one thing, this doesn't really speak thematically to the movie, but I really like that the way we find out that there's a history between Nakia and T'Challa is not through some bullshit flashback. It's literally just an aside. You know, it's just I think Shuri was like, is it really a good idea to bring your ex to a battle?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, that's really all you needed to know. And then all the acting, all the
interpersonal relations.
No, the interactions. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. The interactions between the two of the actors tells you everything else you need to know. Your mind just was like,
Yeah, you start putting it all together. Well, you can
There's a
connect
history
with it
there
in some way. Yeah.
But their performances are what tells you there's a history there. You don't need that line, but that line goes, oh, it reinforces the idea. Yeah, there is a history. I can tell by the way they get along.
Exactly.
You know, I think that's I think that those are two of the best performances of the entire movie. Killmonger was good. As we said in the first one, I just think that he was too singular in his purpose and in his drive. When you're not questioning it, you're not, like I said again last time, is if you get everything that you've been fighting for your whole life, do you question? Are you satisfied? Are you questioning it? Do you feel the way you thought you were going to feel? Like, I'd like to know those things. But let's talk about the death scene a little bit.
Well, like what you said with Killmonger too, I still think that shows what T'Challa could have been in Civil War, the poison of the mind of vengeance and everything.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, maybe.
So and Killmonger is what would have happened if T'Challa kept going in that direction. There's the result.
Yeah, you know, I like that. I like the idea of tying Civil War to this. Because as we said again, because there's 2 years in between these movies, you know, and the attention span of the public is so fucking short anymore. It's really easy to forget what happened in Civil War and apply T'Challa's small arc to this movie. These movies actually really meld together very well. And you're right, it is. It's like holding up a mirror to T'Challa and being like, look, had you kept up with that whole vendetta that you had against Zemo, this is where you could have ended up. This could be you right now, just consumed by anger and holding on to your past and you know, ultimately leading to your death.
Yep.
You know,
well, it's not seeing the bigger picture too, because with T'Challa, he was like, Bucky killed my dad.
Yeah.
That's all he was focused on. When he took a step back and finally realized, like, oh, it was Zemo the whole time, blah, blah, blah. I almost killed an innocent man.
I rushed to judgment.
So
I also do like that line, I am both king and warrior. How long do you think you can protect your friend from me? I was like, yeah, that's a bad fucking line. But okay, let's talk really quickly about Killmonger's death scene, right? Now, I thought it was poetic, of course, to take him up and show him the sunrise.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, his father had always told him that the sunrise was the most beautiful thing in Wakanda. And, you know, he's like, hey, you're about to die, basically, and let me show you mercy, you know, and let you know that I can save you. And he goes, and he says, you know, I don't want your mercy. I don't want, you think I want to live the rest of my life in a fucking cage?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll
jump off the ship.
Yeah.
I'll jump off. I'll be like
bury me in the sea.
Bury me in the sea,
ancestors
like my ancestors who knew that would be better than being bound.
Yeah. So yeah,
death would be better than being bound.
Yeah, death
is better than bondage. But I did find it a little bit on the nose, a little too on the nose when he was like my ancestors did off the ships, you know, because I was like, okay, you're really specifying one single, you know, point in time, which I get it. But had you just been like, it's better to die than live in bondage, I think that's all you really needed. At that moment, I thought, you know, less is more here, because if you're really trying to point out a specific point in time where this is applicable, then it kind of stomps on it being universally applicable. And it's a small gripe, but it's just something that I thought to myself when watching the movie, just thinking, had you just said it's better to death is better than living in bondage, that's all you really needed, you know. Is there anything else in the death scene either of you guys want to talk about?
Oh, I already, when I said it, I think I said it in part one, or maybe I said it at the beginning of this, but in part one I was talking about, it's like, that's what I loved about the Killmonger character too, is he stayed as the character all the way to death.
Yeah.
So, and then, I know a lot of people keep saying, like, I hope they bring back Killmonger and everything else, but given that honorable death, I hope they don't.
No,
and
I don't
just
think
like,
you bring
that
back
was a great
Killmonger.
send-off,
Yeah.
and I kind of hope they don't.
Personally, I just wish they hadn't killed him off. I think it would have been more interesting to not kill him off, because I thought Marvel had kind of learned their lesson from that. Like, you kill off Red Skull, you kill off Malekith, you kill off fucking Ultron, and you know all these other Crossbones. I still hate that fucking thing that they killed off. My one gripe with Civil War is killing off Crossbones. But I thought we'd kind of learned from that. I thought Killmonger could be so much more interesting to have kept alive. You know, but then at the same time, again, it stomps on your point. Well, if Black Panther leaves him alive just to be an inmate until he reforms, that's not really the Black Panther. It's not true to the arc that Black Panther went through in this movie.
I guess you have some points there, like yeah, we never seen what happened to his body and all that stuff, and he did take the heart-shaped herb and all that stuff. It just. But I kind of hope they don't bring him
No,
back.
he's dead. I think for all intents and purposes,
You have
he's
to keep
dead.
him dead.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Is there anything else either guys would like to add until we? And I'm going to go into just the last talking point here.
That's my belly, man. Why you fucking hit my belly?
Okay, so let's just move on. So, all right. So the way I said in the first one, this would be very at home in a Phase 1 movie, right? Be a killer Phase 1 movie. I'm likening this movie to Captain America: The First Avenger, right? We all like the movie, It's not our favorite. It's not a perfect movie, but we like it enough.
It gets the job done.
Right. But what happened after Captain America: The First Avenger? We got fucking Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is what I'm hoping for Black Panther. I'm hoping the sequel to Black Panther is the fucking Winter Soldier of whatever, if they have a trilogy, quadrilogy, whatever it is, for Black Panther's own, solo franchise. I'm hoping the second one just ups the ante so much that it is on par with Cap's Winter Soldier movie. And I don't know, obviously, I'm not coming up with a fucking title. But I did think, going into this movie, the more interesting story to tell would not have been the Killmonger thing, but it would have been the T'Challa comes back from Civil War. He's not really ready for the throne, but knows that he has to do it, right? Meanwhile, he's got two outsider white boys in Wakanda who have never really ever set foot in Wakanda, as far as we know, other than like Andy Serkis. He's the only other white person outsider's ever been in there. Had this movie been about everyone finding out that T'Challa did not kill Bucky, because as far as they know, Bucky is the murderer of T'Chaka, and they're going, why are you showing this outsider mercy? Why are you harboring him here? You're not fit for the throne. And the movie would have been about really more like a power struggle on who's really fit for the throne. Is it Shuri? Would Shuri be the one to try and like take the throne? Like, brother, you're unfit. Our rules dictate that whoever kills our king, that's death. That sentence is death. So it's about him having to basically win over Wakanda, his whole nation, who doesn't believe he's worthy. The elders don't think he's worthy, and he's got to prove himself worthy, and even himself, having a lot of doubts himself about whether or not he's fit for the throne. I think that would have been the more interesting story to tell. But again, that would have been a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment, right? Mm-hmm. Because damned if you do, because then you get a lot of people going, well, you thought you couldn't tell a Black Panther movie without having some of the other cast in there? Like, you thought he couldn't hold his own movie? You had to put some of the white heroes in there and make them a supporting cast? So that's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, which is what we got, which is, I think, a little bit less of an interesting story. Again, we talked about the themes and the message being like a fucking grand slam, right? Did a great job. The story itself could have been better. You know what I mean? Because I think you have a chance to further the story that we saw in Civil War and how it affects Black Panther going forward. Yeah. Any ideas? Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, with that too, you could also juggle back and forth, like you said, dive more into politics. It's like how you would handle that too.
The way I would have imagined that movie is being a very geopolitical film.
Yeah.
Because it's about. It's not only about that, because in that movie too, if you've got Black Panther who's out in the streets doing everything that he did, he's out in the open now. There's a lot of people investigating about Wakanda and who they are, and it's like there's got to be external pressure to come out from them. Because you'd think there'd be news reports. The ruler of Wakanda is going toe to toe with Captain America. Like, how do they have this tech? Like, we see bullets flying off this dude. What the fuck's going on? Mm-hmm. There's more to Wakanda than we thought.
Yeah.
And that's where Everett Ross would have come in as as an investigator, things like that. I think that could have been a very interesting story, and hopefully something along those lines ends up happening in the second one. I think that there needs to be more of a power struggle for the throne, and not from somebody like Killmonger, who's an outsider, but more so, is T'Challa really fit for it? Mm-hmm. And he's got to fight to prove his worthiness. I think that would have been an interesting story to tell.
Yeah, the more MCU movie I compare it to in Phase 1 was definitely like Thor.
Right.
You had Loki was, Odin went in his coma. Mm-hmm. Now you got Loki on the throne. Then, Killmonger's on the throne, so you got to restore order back and everything else. So I kind of related it to that.
Yeah.
And, but just like overall and everything else with that, I'm drawing a blank here.
That's right. No, but I mean, it would have been a very good Phase 1 movie.
Well, yeah, it's like politics-wise, too. We really never got to dive real deep into that in Thor, which I wish we would have. And same thing with this.
Yeah,
Right?
as we talked about earlier, I would have really liked to have known from the common person in Wakanda, right, from a common citizen.
Yeah.
How do they feel about this?
Exactly. Yes.
That would be a very interesting story dynamic to add.
Even as
Yeah.
Guardians,
Like-
you never really got to see
Right.
much from them.
Yeah, I mean that was one thing I kept like toying around with too. Is like another thing that Killmonger could be feeling about, the people even though they are an advanced society and they are in their own do they feel trapped?
Yeah, I mean, you could have a portion of people going like, we want to branch out.
Yeah.
Like they're nobody knows that they even exist.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're trying to. It's like they feel like they have to stay hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wasn't that the way in Tennessee's graphic novel too? It's like they talked about the people like feeling like they were enslaved because they used the vibranium mines and everything else. It's like, how is this any different from slavery?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
your people turning on you.
Yeah,
or anything
I
else?
think-
yeah. See, I mean, we don't know that kind of stuff though. But
Right.
that was one thing I was thinking with that's another thing that Killmonger probably when he came there he saw it and he's like, you keep these people trapped up in here and you're no better than
Yeah.
slave owners. Like this is just another. It's a vibranium mine, but it's just it's another plantation.
And even
You know?
another. And
Wow,
even-
good call.
Yeah, and even another good connection to why, T'Chaka's brother. He had the different thing. It's like, and if you do something against the system, you die.
Well, I
And-
mean, even T'Challa's or Killmonger's dad was like, "Look, these people need us. Like, they need our help."
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what he was saying to his brother. So, I think that'd be a great movie. I think if you've got a portion of your citizens, your population going, I don't know that I want you as my ruler. I don't think that you're fit, and I don't think you're going to rule us the right way, and we're going to be the best we can be under your rule. And then you've got another portion of the people going, look, we don't want to stay here anymore. We don't want to have to be kept secret. We feel like we're kind of living a secret and a lie. And
Like we're some kind of fucking redheaded stepchild or something.
yeah, so I think that could be a really cool power struggle to see. And hopefully we see this in the sequel. Is how does Wakanda adjust to being in the public eye? How do they adjust to this now? Because you've got a lot of people who've lived they've lived generations, thousands of years in these borders.
Yeah.
What do they do now that people know about them? That you might have some kind of free trade deals, and you've got people coming in, and that it's like us going to Japan and going, hey, here's my culture and everything, and and I know the Japanese culture does not like Western culture. They're not big about it. They look at us as kind of blasphemers, and they're all very much into their culture and their lifestyle. How would Wakanda deal with that?
Yep. That's another thing too. You can go with is doesn't Nakia, isn't she a villain? She ends up becoming a villain in the comics.
Yeah, she becomes Malice. Is that right?
Yeah.
So maybe you could
Yeah.
juggle back and forth. It's like somebody that so close to T'Challa, and maybe now that Wakanda's out in the public
Yeah,
and
maybe
everything
she
else,
becomes
he makes decisions she definitely disagrees
She
with.
has, but the thing is, we as an audience would agree or at least understand why she becomes so radicalized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that could be a really cool idea.
Yeah. I don't know. It just makes me wonder if that's when he says, when Killmonger at the death scene, when he says that whole thing about death being better than bondage, if that's one thing kind of helps triggers, to make that call to open Wakanda up because he does say that line towards the end, I think, that only fools build walls.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
nice.
So he said, yeah.
That was a nice little
Only
shot at
fools build
Trump.
walls.
Yep.
I think.
So,
I think that was good though.
So I think maybe he partially means the wall that is keeping everybody out, because obviously he's growing a little bit more to changing traditions, because bringing new people in, he's bringing broken white people in, white boys.
Yeah.
And but then also at the same time, because even though you have the one wall that's keeping people out, you still have that wall that's keeping people in.
Right, and then that could serve
To bondage.
Exactly. I was going to say, yeah, maybe some people feel that is a form of bondage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, does anybody have any other closing ideas or thoughts that they want to get out on their chest about the movie? And just overall, anything that we didn't hit on in part
Did
one?
you say you wanted to wait a second time before you place this in the MCU.
Yeah, I gotta see it again because so here's my thing: the movie itself, as a movie, I'm borrowing the messages technically as a movie. It's not offensive in any. That's fine. It's not an offensive movie, but it's also not an exceptional movie.
See,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the same thing I'm having a problem with. This movie, as I said many times in this part, and it's what I'm having a hard time. I got to watch it a second time to kind of figure out. When I watch it as a movie, there's problems I see. The CG isn't that great. The story is it's weirdly placed at times. There's flaws to it. It's still a good movie, but the thing is, though, is like part of me goes like that, but at the same time, it's such a big movement, such a big needed thing in our society, and it speaks so much volume to that like I honestly cannot give it a real honest review.
Right.
And I'm mixed morally.
Yeah, for me, for me, it's like the movie didn't have any emotional gut punches for me. Like, I didn't feel any emotional resonance from this movie. I didn't feel really anything that the characters were feeling. Now, I
Killmonger, I got pretty teary-eyed.
Yeah,
did you?
Or not Killmonger, Claw. They killed Claw.
Oh, okay.
Why do you do
That's just because you're fucking white.
Yeah, I know. Why would they kill the funny white
I wanted Everett Ross to die, so I wanted the other white boy to die.
But so for me, I didn't feel anything from the movie. I don't feel anything when Killmonger died. I didn't feel probably the most emotionally resonant moment was T'Challa being almost defiant towards his father in the ancestral plane. You know, like, I mean, there's a couple times he was just like yelling, like, "You made this monster, you did this," and I can kind of relate because I've butted heads with my dad plenty of times, and you know, it is very frustrating. But
is he about to say he loves his dad?
I do love my father. Of course, I love my father.
Oh, he's shedding a tear.
You're fucking crying. But
cutting onions.
But and the thing is, though, too, is there's no moment in this movie that stands out to me and goes, man, that was fucking awesome.
Right.
You know? So when I came out of my first viewing, the things that stuck out to me were more the flaws of the movie than the, oh my God, this moment, or oh my God, that moment. You know, like when I came out of Civil War, it's like, holy fuck that airport scene. You know, holy fuck that Cap holding onto the fucking helicopter, or you know, the fight, the Cap and Bucky fighting up and ganging up on Iron Man, like all that shit. You're just like, dude, insane. You know, there aren't really any moments like that for me in this movie. In the first Iron Man 1, I go, holy shit, he breaks the fucking Mach 1. Oh, fuck, when he takes out those terrorists in Umbazi, or the fuck it was called. I can't remember. Whatever it's called. That was badass. Like, he just went fucking all out.
Wasn't the terrorists the
10 rings, but wherever they were, I can't remember, because Yinsen says he's from some place and whatever, but you know, there were moments in that movie like, holy fucking, it kind of helps you forget some of the flaws those movies have when those stick out to you and go, holy shit, that blew me away.
See, if you were black, you would have that moment the whole time.
When I think of Civil War, some of the things that I think of that stood out to me too were the Black Panther scenes.
I've said it in the part 1. Black Panther stole that. That was, to me, Civil War. That was the best thing about Civil War.
Well, his scenes fine. When he was, you know, going in, like that's another thing too that you pointed out. I think part 1, part 2, one of them, anyways, is, you know, the switch of tone of Black Panther. Because when he was after Bucky in Civil War, I was like, holy fuck, get Bucky away from him, because that dude was
he
determined.
Fucking means business. And that whole chase scene from the fucking rooftop to the car to the freeway, going under the freeway, like all that, like. When I saw what Black Panther could do, what he was capable of, I was like, holy shit, that stands out in my mind. So I can forgive some of the flaws of that movie. You know, some of the maybe lapses in logic of storytelling. But like for this one, there were no moments like that for me where I go, holy fuck, that was so cool. It totally redeems any issues I really had, or makes me forget about them. So I walked out of the movie. Unfortunately, I walked out thinking more about the things I had issue with than the things that I went, oh shit, that's awesome. You know, so I do need a second watch on this movie, because now I can go into the second time and I can go, I know what the flaws are. Now I can concentrate on the really good aspects, you know. But I will say this too: when I go into any movie, I go in as objectively as I always, any movie I go into, whether it be Avengers, Iron Man, fucking, you know, the Nutcracker, whatever it is, I'm gonna go into this movie as objective as any. Yeah, you know, I just had to throw in part of my list. But I go into any of those movies as objective as any other movie. You know, I'm gonna go, okay, I'm gonna analyze the dialogue. I'm gonna watch the acting. I'm gonna look at the cinematography, the lighting, all those kinds of things.
I do the same thing. That's the reason why I gotta watch it twice.
Right, and so with this one, I did that. So for instance, I did that with Thor Ragnarok. Right, the first few minutes of that movie, he's all tied up, he's cracking jokes. I was legitimately worried about this movie. I was like, this is not landing for me. I'm not liking this. This isn't funny. It's really kind of stale humor. Then he busts out, fucking Led Zeppelin kicks in, and we get, bar none, the best Thor action we've ever had. By then, when a movie's able to do this, which is, I lose my objective eye, and I'm along for the ride because I'm having such a fucking good time, I forgive a lot for that movie. I did it for my first viewing of Doctor Strange. When first time she punches the spirit out, and he's like going through this fucking acid trip of a journey through all these weird worlds. You had me, and I lost my objective eye, and I was having such a good time. The rest of the movie was just pure joy.
See, I did the same thing, and that was exactly the same thing. Thor Ragnarok and Doctor Strange, it took my objective eye out. I couldn't. I was having. I got to a point where I was just like having too much of a good time.
And so
Black Panther, I didn't have any moments where it did that to me. So I was objective the whole time.
So in my second viewing of Doctor Strange, I was finally able to go back and watch and go, oh, okay, here are the flaws. Some of my biggest issues are honestly with Baron Mordo as a character. You know, I'm going, okay, this could have been done better. This is not as good as I thought it was. And you know, so I haven't had a second experience with Black Panther. Usually, if I go into a movie like that and I have issues, and I don't come out going overjoyed and just like jumping for joy. I go into the second one, and I generally have a much better time my second viewing.
Yeah, that's the way I was with Spider-Man: Homecoming. I enjoyed Spider-Man: Homecoming the first viewing.
I came out of Spider-Man: Homecoming about the same way I did Black Panther.
See, I did too.
My first
and
viewing.
then the second viewing, I was like, wow, that was structured very well. Also, to the character, everything that was, I don't know, the scene where he's standing up, looking at the party and everything, and you see it's like, oh yeah, this. And then when the fucking that happened the first time viewing, but when the rubble fell on Peter Parker, I was like, oh shit, this is a kid.
Yeah.
And it's like you feel that and everything else. And then also when him juggling life back and forth, he's like looking at the party and he's in his Spider-Man suit with his mask off.
That's the only true moment to me where he feels tortured between his duty and what he wants to do.
I know, which is like what you need a lot more of that in Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think we've also been conditioned to think that there needs to be a lot of heart and a lot of stakes in Spider-Man movies. Those first two Raimi movies, I mean, fucking A, if you didn't feel something, you're legitimately like a fucking psycho.
Yeah.
You know, you have no empathy for anybody. But yeah, so this, you know, I just didn't get that with this one. I'm hoping my second viewing I'll get a better grip of the film and I'll know where it stands in the overall pantheon of the MCU. But for now, it's not in my top 5.
Okay. I do have one quick question though.
Sure.
If you've listened to a lot of our podcast, one thing you've noticed, I've calmed down on my dick jokes.
You sure have, so go ahead and make a dick joke.
No, I'm not going to make any dick jokes.
You're afforded one now.
I'm not going to make any dick jokes. Okay? But no, one thing, when we talked about Black Panther a lot, you were worried about this being overly hyped like Wonder Woman was.
Yeah.
Do you think, after watching that, is that still a worry?
Okay,
or do you think that is even a possibility, or do you think that this does it nice enough for you to be able to be okay with it?
It's the last one for me. So Wonder Woman, literally, thematically, I thought it was messy. The movie itself, on a technical aspect, is not very good. The acting's not very good. That movie is very overhyped. Mm-hmm. This movie, yes, if I'm being blunt, it is overhyped. In the sense that as a movie, just as a movie, it is not great. It's not a great movie. But the message of this movie, the overall thematic message of this movie is so strong, I cannot discourage anybody for saying it's a great movie, because ultimately what you take away from a movie is what makes it great or not. You know, if you want to be subjective about it. If I'm saying objectively, this is not a great movie, it's a fine movie, it's a good movie, it's not a great movie, right? If I'm judging this movie purely based on the technical aspects of filmmaking, no, it's not a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. But the message of the movie is so strong, it's so relevant, it applies to the world we live in now, and it is executed well enough to where I go, that part's not overhyped. That part is absolutely correct. It's
deserving.
It's deserving of the hype it gets.
Yep. Okay.
But if you're asking me just as a movie, If this is a 97% film, no, it's not. But I'm okay with it because that part was executed so well.
Because the message was so golden
Yeah.
and it was needed.
You said word for word. Like, he literally just said word for word. I was sitting there just like, yeah, but the message, and then you're right, but the message. I'm like, oh fuck, I already said it. So yeah, it's I don't know, like the 97%, I got it because of the message. I get the 97%. It's but as a movie, there is some pacing issues. If you look at it as a movie standpoint,
Exactly.
Like you said, the part one we broke it down as a movie. This one's diving into the core of the movie, what the message is bringing out of this movie. It's exactly. There's going to be different ratings in those categories for sure.
Yeah, and if you're asking me this, do I think that the critics are being nice? Well, if I look at these critics and I see what they've given other movies, because they base their critiques on the technical achievements in that film, then yes, they're being nice with their critiques. But it's just a movie that you, at this point in time, cannot be ignored.
It's like one of those movies that like a teacher plays for you. That's a really bad movie. It was like had a bad cast, had a bad film quality, everything. Nobody even heard of it, and then you're just like, the teacher plays it for you because like this movie has a really good solid point you guys need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And so you watch it and you go, the movie does have a really good point. Really, definitely not good. Shouldn't be winning any Oscars.
Right.
But the message that movie gets across is.
I can't think of an example.
I got one for you, and I'm not comparing this to Black Panther, so I don't think that.
I was going to say Color Purple, watch it.
No, I'm going to say Lord of the Flies. Did you guys have to read Lord of the Flies in high school?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have to watch the movie after you read
Yes.
the book? Okay. Not a good movie. It's not a good movie.
No.
But it does a good job of getting its point across, what it's trying to do. It's using children.
I read Green Eggs and Ham. That's about as far
That's
as
I read Cat in a Hat, which
Yeah.
makes no fucking sense. These cats don't wear hats, okay?
That's just fucking insane.
It's fucking insane. It's absurd.
Cats don't wear hats. No. So something like that, I can understand the relevance of that movie, and why we needed to study it. This movie is the same, but it's a better movie than Lord of the Flies.
Obviously,
but just again, this is just a movie at this point in time, cannot be ignored what it means. What it means socially, what it means politically, what it does for our overall culture. I don't think this is a movie that can be ignored, and I don't think it's a movie people should not see.
Yes.
Okay, but that's also for the people who aren't going to go in there and judge it on superficial bullshit like, it's fucking all black cast. Well, guess what? I'm a whitey and I don't feel represented by this movie. Well, that's great. Just look at the fucking message. The message applies to everybody. It really does. Yeah, you can say this applies to the African American community, but if you look at it on a larger whole, this applies to everybody. Get over your bullshit. Get past your past. We as a people, we as a society, barring race, gender, sexual orientation, we all need to progress. That's this movie's message. We all need to integrate with each other, become one, because I saw Jeremy John say this, and I thought it was fucking beautiful. He's like, we look at this earth, and we see different countries, we see divides, we see different continents, and just all this shit. What we need to be doing is looking at this planet as a fucking house. And these countries are just different rooms in that house. And we're all a family. Like, that's absolutely fucking good. Like, Jeremy Johns, when the fuck did you become a philosopher? But it's absolutely true. Like, that is what we should be doing. Like, my sister lives in the fucking bedroom across from me or something. She doesn't, but if I'm thinking about it, like, oh yeah, my sister and my parents live in that fucking that room, my sister lives in that room. If we were to look at the world that way, yeah.
America's that one brother that's just like overweight that stays in his bedroom all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Stinks at the place, plays the video games, and like goes,
No.
I'm so mad, Mom didn't get any extra pizza rolls.
Yeah, that's America is the basement.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like perfectly said. It's like the greed of what that's basically as America is and everything else. Like if you talk about global warming, that affects everyone.
Yeah.
And we ignore it. Right. Well, we're just worried about our business right now. We're not really worried.
Well, guess what? I don't care that the planet's dying because
Yeah.
my fucking investment books on the oil profits. Yeah, that's looking pretty sweet right now.
Yeah, it's
This
like they
episode
understand
got-
we only get one fucking Earth,
Yeah.
and it just drives me nuts.
This episode got very political today.
The thing is,
To
I
the
think
point
you
where
have-
Josh isn't even making like pussy and vagina jokes.
But the thing is, I think this movie is asking us to talk about these things. And
I know,
I think
and
it's
it
good
is.
that we are. I think
It
this
is.
movie absolutely is trying to evoke conversation among people.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's just done it with us, and I'm hoping it's doing it with everybody else,
I completely agree.
that means this movie is absolutely successful. And I think that's a great place, honestly, in this. So,
Yeah, I completely agree.
yeah, guys, if you've listened this far, you know what? I'm not gonna make too many jokes. I honestly encourage you to get out, see the movie, talk about this movie, talk about where you feel you fit in with this film. How can you better yourself, better your community, all those things, because that's what this movie is asking us to do. So, hopefully, you guys listened to part 1 on the James Eversole Jr. movie podcast, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this part 2. I hope if you listen to them back to back, it feels like a well-rounded 360-degree view of Black Panther. Thanks for coming on, guys. Josh, would you like to say anything before we head out?
All jokes aside, I completely agree. Like, today has just been a very good episode.
Very good.
I'm very
sitting back.
Yeah, I can't even think straight
and
right now.
marvel at Jake.
No, I'm really marveled by Jake.
Yeah,
I mean, I've known Jake for a while now, and I've never seen
I'm
him
touched.
like. Yeah, I'm.
You guys don't talk about movies enough with me. That's all.
No, we talk about movies, but you just like get really like you're like fuck social justice warriors.
I'm
and,
thinking about making pendants like Jacob for president.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't know. No,
Well,
but all jokes
fools
aside,
build walls.
all jokes aside, I think that this movie is a very big and great stepping stone, and I think that it's something that everyone should go out and watch, and stay woke.
Stay woke, James.
yeah, well, you said it before too. It's like the message was a fucking grand slam. It's the movie aspect. If you nail that down, I mean, you have a damn near perfect movie. So.
Yeah, and guys, remember that if somebody criticizes a movie, it doesn't mean it's not a good movie, and that's okay. Just because we found flaws in the movie doesn't mean we didn't like the movie. You heard we all like the movie. We all are very strong and supportive of this film. I really do hope that this movie warrants sequels. I hope it prompts other filmmakers to make movies like it, and show that, and it's obviously shown that there's an audience for these films. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. Again, the link below, you'll find part 1 of this review. And if you guys want to check out the channel with the rest of the movies, the last video that we put up on this channel was a film draft. It was a lot of fun to do. I was really proud of that. I had a great time with these two guys, plus Dallas and Kyle. So, thanks for listening, guys, and take care.